Welcome to season 3, episode 4 of Biogas TV. I'm Paul Green. I run an RNG advisory business. This week, we continue to feature the nominees for the Giants of Biogas Awards that we are hosting. Today, we feature Patrick Serfass, Executive Director of the American Biogas Council. The Giants Awards are being given to people who have truly moved the needle in the biogas business. We're giving these awards out in May in parallel with the Detroit conference. We also have along my co-host Alex McFarland of RNG Connect and our offtake guru Drew Puchot, who we feature at the end of the show with the offtake roundup. Our sponsor today is Plastic Fusion Fabricators. PFF is an industry-leading pioneer of covered lagoon digesters. PFF's products feature rigid welded ballasts and provide decades of reliable service in the most challenging environments. Find them at www.plasticfusion.com. So Patrick Serfass has been the executive director of the ABC since its inception in 2010. He's been at the helm, driving the organization from a startup to now over 450 members and the nation's leading biogas trade organization. Such a huge accomplishment. Patrick, great to see you again. How are you doing today?
Thanks for hiring me as executive director back in the day, Paul.
You're welcome.
If anyone doesn't know that history. Seriously.
Indeed.
Paul was the one who made it happen. So yeah,
I still have
Thank
that.
you.
That's back when we signed things with pen and paper. I've got that signed contract in my drawer here. I'll always have
Yeah.
that.
Just a step past quills. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So one thing we do is make a pitch for the Detroit conference. It'll be the place to be in May for the industry. How's things coming together for that, Patrick?
Really well. I think the baseball game is sold out. Comerica, ABC member, participant in the biogas industry, big time. It's the park that the Tigers play at is Comerica, the Comerica Bank Park. I probably got that name slightly wrong, but they're the big sponsor. And so yeah, we've got a really fun event there. And one of the things that's going to be different this year is we have so many more side events, and it's not just ABC organized side events like yours, Paul, the Giants of Biogas. We've got that one. There's a bunch of other companies. Bernie, our chairman, is putting on a fishing outing on Sunday to go for walleye, which I think will be really fun for anyone that's going to be there early on Sunday. The main event is basically like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Golf is going to be super popular. We've got a really nice course, so I'm really excited. It's always a good time. It's become the main place where everyone is. We're really proud of that and happy that people have that impression of it. So we're all working our tails off to make sure that everyone feels well taken care of there. And it looks like we're going to have somewhere between 1,700 and 2,000 people there in May. And the biggest expo anyone has seen in biogas yet. We keep getting bigger every year. So
Yeah,
keeping that up. Yeah.
Amazing.
So we're just going to do a bit of a policy review with Patrick today. So you had a significant fly-in last week to DC, covered a lot of ground, lots of very pressing topics for the industry. We need a bit of a shot in the arm, and there's a lot of loose ends up there. But can you give us a couple of the high points from last week?
Yeah, I mean, I think not surprisingly, the issues that we focused on the most are the issues that matter to most of all of you, right? And 45Z is top of most people's lists because it's of the things that can move the needle on project development and especially move the needle nearer term. That's probably the best opportunity. There's lots of different steps that have been taken that have been helpful. But we still don't have all the steps taken where industry can really use the tax credit unless you want to take on a whole lot of risk because we're not really sure how the carbon accounting will really work out. And so everything really sits at DOE. And so the meetings last week, we had about 50 meetings with 7 different teams all on Tuesday, all across Capitol Hill. And you talk about different things in different offices, but 45Z was present in most of those, and it was all about trying to get Congress to put more pressure on DOE, the Department of Energy, to get the GREAT accounting done for that. So, I think I would tell you the results were kind of like twofold. One is there's very widespread agreement that that members of Congress and the staff want 45Z to be successful, right? It's been extended. We know it can work, not just for biogas, but for other fuels as well. So there's very widespread agreement on that. There seems to be some confusion between DOE and Treasury over is there enough money to finish the GREET analysis, or is there enough direction from the administration, really from the White House, to tell DOE to finish this up? There's a lot of feet dragging over at DOE. Some people are saying it's because some funding needs to be sent their way. Others are saying it's not the funding, it's just political will. And so we've been applying a lot of pressure. If any of you weren't on early, just to kind of put some punctuation on this, we gave Senator Grassley of Iowa, we gave him our Champion of Biogas Award. So it's an award that's reserved for policymakers. And we only give it out selectively, and we give it out when members of Congress have done something that's been really helpful to the biogas industry that we want to positively reinforce. And Senator Grassley has done a lot of that with 45Z and some of the other tax credits and the RFS and some things like that, so we were giving him the award, and we were also talking about how much we need DOE to move on this. And he offered to place calls to the secretaries at Ag and Energy to figure out, okay, what is really, like, we're hearing rumors going around about why this isn't done yet. What's really going on? So I think it feels good last week to have made some progress just across the hill in terms of moving some of these priorities ahead. Other things that matter are RVOs. Obviously, that's not Congress's action, but we've all been waiting for RVOs for a while. So you'll see a theme here when, like, the administration isn't moving on something, you badger Congress to put pressure on the administration to do things. So getting RVOs out for the RFS. We can talk a little bit about that if you want to. Talked about electricity, 48E, 45Y, and what needs to change there to allow that to happen. Talked a lot about maritime, big opportunities there, and talked a lot about the Farm Bill, which has passed the House and is over to the Senate. But there are different thoughts on whether that's going to move. And of course, within the Farm Bill are lots of programs that you all use for project development that are important. So a bunch of topics there.
I heard maritime, and now I want to. That sort of piqued my interest. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, Patrick? You're talking about in the context of IMO, in the context of applying RINs to maritime. What's the angle?
Yeah, several different angles. So I think broad brush, if we can get more biofuels, more low carbon fuels into shipping, just like the LCFS in California is designed to get more low carbon fuels into cars and trucks, right? Same thing for maritime, different kind of construct, but same idea. Let's decarbonize maritime fuels. When you look at decarbonizing maritime fuels, much like vehicles, some of the lowest carbon options are LNG and bio LNG, which is basically liquefied RNG. Take RNG and you liquefy it, and in the shipping industry, it's bio LNG. They're the most competitive, and it's just like RNG. Like if a utility, like a U.S. utility is buying RNG, you don't necessarily, if the carbon intensity is low enough, you only have to buy a little bit of it to decrease your carbon footprint way, way, way down. So if the shipping industry is going to be required to decarbonize, or even if it's decarbonizing voluntarily, which is what is already happening, major shipping companies have already made lots of announcements with companies in the biogas industry included in the US to decarbonize. If that's going to happen, that is going to create a huge volume of demand, which is what we need, offtake, right? We need more demand for all the fuel that the biogas industry can produce. So that's kind of like the big picture. And you've got like lots of prongs. You've got IMO, which is the international organization that regulates almost all shipping, trying to get something to happen there. We can talk about that if you want. Then you've got the fact that the US, even though we have only a fraction of the flagged ships internationally that other countries like Liberia and Panama and Cyprus and the Marshall Islands have, we still fuel a lot of ships because a lot of ships are delivering stuff to US ports, need to fuel up or want to fuel up with low carbon fuels before they go someplace else. So domestically, we've got, okay, what can we, if separate from internationally, what can we do to push domestic markets with maritime to fuel here. And coupled with that is an infrastructure challenge in terms of how we need to fuel ships and some investment that's needed there. And then when you look at domestic, there's all kinds of different things you could do. You could create more pathways in the RFS. There's a bill that we were supporting and thanking our sponsors for supporting in Congress, which is the Renewable Fuels for Maritime Act. And that would create new maritime pathways in the renewable fuel standard. So there's a bill out there in Congress to do that. EPA with the RFS could also act on their own. And so we're pushing that angle as well. But last week was all about Congress. It was mostly about Congress. So we were pushing that Renewable Fuels for Maritime Act. Or we could create something like an LCFS for maritime separately in the US. There's some folks in the industry who've started floating that idea around to do something that might start out domestic, but could branch to be international. And then the third target that is kind of quasi-domestic and also international is right now, if you don't know it, if you ship goods to Europe and they're not shipped with an approved low carbon fuel, that shipment gets taxed. And so if we are exporting as the US, exporting goods to Europe, our exports get taxed. American taxpayers basically end up getting taxed because we're trying to sell our American products, right, by this fuel EU tax. You can imagine our administration currently right now is really not happy about Americans getting taxed by trying to export, but then Europe is trying to decarbonize maritime shipping coming into that continent. And so another prong is, can we at least get the Fuel EU program that does this taxing for shipments into Europe? Can we get them to recognize that if ships fuel up with bio-LNG in the US when they're here before they go to Europe, will that tax be avoided? And that would obviously be great for American taxpayers, it'd be great for the country, and it would create a huge opportunity. Like even just that would create a huge opportunity.
That would be significant.
So there's all these different feelings on like, okay, well, what is going to go first? And no one really knows. And so we're trying to put our irons in as many fires as possible and trying to push as many pathways to see where we can create demand. And right now there's opportunity everywhere, which is very exciting.
Do you see a champion in your conversations within Congress on the maritime side? A couple of them?
Well, in Congress, so we've got the sponsors on some of these maritime bills anyway, even though those are more domestically focused on RFS. So I think Miller Meeks is one, Representative Marianne Miller Meeks of Iowa. I can't remember the others off the top of my head, but we met with them all last week to thank them for doing that. So there are some champions for that. For the international stuff, most of that is handled with the Department of State. And we did find a champion there last week with one of our White House meetings. So that's really good.
Is there any chance that they might reverse course or at least like back off on opposition to the IMO net zero?
Yeah, what was it? Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying there's a chance, right?
So you're saying there's a chance.
Where can people find information about who these? I imagine it's probably been posted somewhere, but it'd be great.
Well, the sponsors of the bills, right?
Yeah,
sponsors of the bills. Yeah, that's where you can find those people, and we should all be positively reinforcing that the sponsors of the bills.
I think that should be much more proliferated.
Sponsors and co-sponsors, right?
Yeah, for sure. So if you just look up, like, I know it's at least a House bill. So if you look up on house.gov, like renewable fuels for maritime, I don't have the number in front of me right now for that bill, but it should be pretty easy to find. And then
frankly, that alone would be massive for us, because I mean, it's a lot of demand, and it's not linked necessarily with the carbon scoring. It would just open up, if you could put your RINs D5s and D3s in the maritime, that would be enormously helpful.
It would be enormously helpful. And that is definitely the positive spin on it. I'm going to give you the other side of the coin, though, which is we've had a renewable electricity pathway and the RFS for 15 years that has been approved and created, and EPA hasn't approved the first project to act on that. And now we've got an administration that is like anti-electric vehicle, almost everything. So, creating this pathway with Congress is it's one step of the way there, and it is a very important step, and there are very many positive things there, but it doesn't get used until EPA actually puts it into practice and writes the rules around that. So, kind of two sides to that coin. But this is what we have to do, right? Like, none of these things are going to be like the silver bullet that changes the industry. If anything, what we've seen over the last 2 years, maybe bleeding into 3, is we've shifted from an industry, or let's go back 10 years. 10 years, right? RNG projects and electricity projects, both of them are getting developed, right? Last 5 years, pretty solidly, has been like 95+% of all new projects have been RNG projects. And almost all of those have been developed with the RFS and the LCFS. And so we got this like myopic view of like how project development should work. And now things are opening back up again, right? And so, it's exciting. It is not as certain as things were a couple of years ago when we had things so simple and so reliable with the LCFS and in RFS. This is in many ways more normal, right? But how many
more
of these,
normal?
Yeah.
For the
how many of these
biogas
doors can
business,
we take open, right? Yeah, like maritime RFS, maritime potential LCFS, maritime international opportunity. And then we've got opportunities to open up the electricity markets again. So let's go down those. And can we improve things for the voluntary markets, for RNG, right? All of these have potential to really impact the industry. And so it makes all of our policy work really, really busy. It's why calls like this are so important, because we're like, okay, where are we today? Because it was different last week.
Did you do any Canada shaming?
Canada shaming?
Yeah, like reverse Canada, a little bit of reverse psychology. Is like, hey, Canada's got the CFR. We're talking about selling all our biogas to Canada. Come on.
I mean, we are closer with the Canadians these days than we ever have been. I'm speaking from the American Biogas Council perspective. Jennifer Green and some of our friends at other national biogas associations. So we're more on the like hug your neighbor side of things.
Oh yeah. I'm just talking about like messing with the psychology of the Congress people, but never mind.
Yeah.
Patrick, do you think we'll start to see more of the maritime people hanging around our association? We've got a lot of producers online here. Everybody just is rabid to sell their gas. But do you think maybe like on the panels in Detroit, do you have industry representatives that they're talking about maritime?
So will we see more people engaged in the industry? Absolutely. Working on that right now, actually, even this morning. So a bit about that. And then, yes, at Biogas Americas, there is a maritime session. It will have producers and users. That'll be on, I think, is Wednesday, May 20th? I think it is.
Yes,
it's going to be one of the main sessions. So, that's going to be really good. I think right now what's happening is the fuel producers, so our industry in particular, right? The biogas industry, RNG, bio-LNG, all of us about renewable methane. We are all very excited about having potential offtake markets and places to put our gas. The shipping industry is made of a mix of people, not unlike other sectors where you have early adopters who are super excited about decarbonization and the prospect of doing that, and others who are more conservative that are like, look, I really just want to kind of keep operating with my bunker fuel the way I have been, and I don't really want to be taxed or regulated anymore, right? You've got a mix of people. But internationally, the interest in decarbonization, even among shipping companies, is so strong that most experts that we are talking to and know a thing or two are saying that this decarbonization in the maritime sector, there's already enough momentum. It's going to happen no matter what. It's just a matter of when and how this is going to happen.
And bio-LNG just needs to fit in the stack with methanol. I'm not sure ammonia is ever going anywhere, but it seems like there's a lot of, in that hype scale of how to decarbonize. Are you hearing much about the other options like biomethanol?
Yeah, I think it's very much like the LCFS, where all the frameworks that I'm seeing they're trying to be created in a way that fuels aren't shut out. And we're all working really hard to make sure that certain fuels are not, like someone doesn't have their thumb on the scale. I mean, I think this administration, the the Trump administration would love to have their thumb on the scale of continuing to help out oil and gas. And we've seen a memo that was kind of leaked through another country recently that basically said, like, hey, we want oil and gas to be a part of this decarbonization program, which just doesn't make much sense. But we're not surprised to hear that. So I think the key is to whatever framework there is, that all the different fuels can participate. Yeah, I think ammonia is probably lowest on the list. Methanol, there's still an opportunity to do that. There's some people that are interested, but some of the companies that were invested in methanol earlier have moved to bio-LNG. I'm not saying it's going to be a total shift that way, but it does feel a little bit like VHS and beta for those folks who are old enough to know that, where it's like, objectively, methanol might be a better solution, but bio-LNG is going to be the easier, more accessible one. But the industry is trying to figure that out right now. And we're just trying to figure
RNG can support both,
Yes.
Oh.
That is it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. Well, wonderful. I know, Alex, you had a couple of thoughts to bring to the team here. Patrick, anything that we're overlooking as far as cool things for the policy update to hit before we thank you for your time?
Yeah, just one more word on the street is that RVOs will be out Wednesday to Friday this week.
Nice.
Don't bet your house on it, but more likely than not. So we're trying to figure out what's in it. Because we haven't heard any positive news leaked, I think we're expecting it to be much like what was proposed before, which I think we're probably going to come out pretty strongly to say, if that's the case, that'll be a disappointment to us. A lot of time has passed since things were proposed, and if there's no improvement, we will be unhappy about that. But having RVOs has a lot of positive things for the industry. We all need those. We still need the RFS to work, and RVOs are crucial for keeping the RFS working. So, look for more on that this week, and we'll all be excited to see what's actually in it.
Wonderful. Thanks, and congratulations for your nomination for Giants of Biogas Award.
Oh, thank you very much.
Good. Alex, you got some things to share?
Yeah. I was curious where our $25 gas, we always say it's like the gourmet gas, right? But we can produce it at 25. That's a blended price between all the different sources, from landfill gas to dairy to whatever. It's sort of like weighted blended average, right? We can produce it all day at that price. That's about $150 a barrel oil equivalent. And as we see Middle Eastern disruption due to this war, it could, we're almost there on parity just in terms of, we need all our subsidies and everything else like that for our sure guarantee. But just important to remember that biomethane has an important role to play, but it's more in the foreign markets, right? So, the other kind of reference price that might be relevant for us is the tidal transfer facility (TTF) price for LNG, which is the European or the Dutch price for LNG, and that bounced up to $24 a million BTU equivalent, and now it's around $18.50. The crazy thing is Henry Hub hasn't moved, right? $3, $4. It's just not, it hasn't responded to this overseas pressure. So it's odd, but we in the US biogas industry, we still are competing against essentially a very, very, very low price gas in the pipe. But these other markets, these markets outside of our boundaries, our borders, could be, again, very lucrative for us, and we're a reliable supply. We can contract on the long duration. So that was it. Just looking at supply disruptions versus what we can do.
Yeah. Your $25 is an interesting number, right? So you're saying that would be a fully baked raw cost to make biomethane. That would include a digester and an upgrader and all your compression. So landfill gas is obviously less, You don't have to build a digester. You're just simply upgrading. But
Yeah,
yeah,
dairy
that's an
is
interesting
more and
number.
food waste is a little more. I'm just saying like sort of a blended, if we could make like if somebody could buy, say I'll buy a blended average at $25 for whatever, that's the equivalent price. But it doesn't work that way, clearly, because we're still up against Henry Hub.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Thanks, Alex. Very well. So Drew, you are up. What you got for us today on the offtake roundup?
I'm noticing that we had a question in regards to Henry Hub price stability, and I did want to kind of comment on that a little bit more. Um, you know, a lot of these markets that you would expect to kind of come off have been remaining within the same level of uncertainty that we've seen within the RFS and the LCFS in the last few months. You just don't have a whole lot of guidance in regards to what's going to happen next. Trump says he's going to bomb power stations and then backs off from that. Iran's been trying to bomb pipelines shipping crude oil out of the Middle East, and Gulf Coast or Gulf LNG shipments are running dry. So there's just a lot of questionality in regards to not just that, but also Patrick's comments in a lot of ways on IMO and maritime shipping, voluntary interest within the bio LNG space, and the WRI's position on using biofuels, well, biomethane as a scope 1, 2, or 3 compliance offset. I think if you see any one of these dams break, so to say, you'll see a lot of movement within the market one way or the other. It's just a question of which comes first. But I do think there's a lot of instances where, like in the short run for some of these global events, we could see some pretty catastrophic changes. And sometimes even short-lived changes can cause people to kind of change their lifestyle. Yeah, I know as an example down here in Houston, the hurricane season every year makes people buy generators. There's always that moment where something clicks and people say, you know what, I'm sick of this, and I'm going to change what I'm doing because of it.
Well, global EV sales are rocketing up.
Yeah, well, so are used global EV vehicles, sitting in the lot unsold. So used prices are down and battery inventory is up as well. So there's a lot of questions around some of that. Dennis's point, Henry Hub price stability is no surprise. Producers are paying to get rid of gas in the Permian. How do you compete with that? Um, and the answer is, some significant long-term outlook shifting. We've kind of done some dives into getting Permian region users to switch to CNG and to see what that would take. But in the offtake space, over the last few weeks, there's been some interesting events. I'm definitely seeing something I needed to call out. We heard that there was some spot transaction within Peter. How about Tessa's new? Yeah, we'll come back to that, Peter, separately. There was some spot transactions, much lower price than we were expecting in the last couple of weeks being reported, even down to a $12 handle, which remains unconfirmed, and I'm highly skeptical of. But if anyone's transacting for spot or term landfill gas offtake at anything below $15, they should call us.
Don't. Yeah.
No, not necessarily don't, but you should definitely give us a call first to make sure that you're not doing something crazy. We're also noticing that the movement towards Canada is becoming more and more real. We do have some developing interests within offtake for Canadian buyers, both from the trade houses and from the obligated parties. It seems to be picking back up. Should have some more clarity on that in the next month or so as reporting obligations come to a deadline for the CFR market. So hopefully the Set 2 guidance or the Set 2 rules that come out this week are helpful. We're all waiting to see how that gets published. And please reach out if you have any questions. And the last thing I wanted to say is there's been an update within Singapore. A number of buyers in Singapore are actively looking for kind of a portfolio of project availability within North America and Europe. Let's make sure that these North American projects get highlighted first. So please reach out if you have anything you want to bring to that market.
Very good. Thanks, Drew. So that wraps it for today. Strong crowd here. Thanks everybody for joining. Next week, we've got Jim Potter. We're featuring another nominee for Giants of Biogas. He's building the largest biogas project in the country now in the New York City metro area. So it'll be a good time hearing from Jim about some of his adventures. But Patrick, again, thank you for joining us. Wonderful to see you. Alex, Drew, be well. Have a good week. And with that, we are a wrap.